Whew, boy, I'm tired. I just checked my phone here and I have walked 6 million millimeters today. Yeah, that's a lot of millimeters. Yeah, welcome today. Today's lesson is converting between centimeters and millimeters. Your learning goal for the day is I can convert between centimeters and millimeters. All right, before we dive into today's lesson, I have to introduce you to one new word. And that word, maybe you've heard it, maybe you haven't, but the word is diameter. And the definition of diameter is a straight line connecting opposite sides of a circle through the center. All right, now anytime I teach you like what a new word is, I'm also going to teach you what it isn't to help you form an understanding of it. So the first thing here is that it must be a straight line. All right, so for example, if I drew a curvy line like that connected the two opposite sides, that's not a diameter because it's not a straight line. All right, um, let's clear that. The second thing in this definition is that it connects opposite sides of the circle, and so if I drew a straight line across the circle like that, also not a diameter, because it doesn't connect opposite sides of the circle. If I were to choose my starting point right here, the opposite side of the circle would be somewhere up over here. And so it's got to be a straight line between opposite sides of the circle, kind of like that, as straight as that can be. And then the last thing here is that it has to pass through the center as well. All right, so that kind of fits along with that second characteristic that we just mentioned there, that it has to pass through the center of the circle and touch opposite sides. But basically, if you have 2 points that are on opposite sides of the circle and you connect those using a straight line, it will automatically pass through the center of the circle. Okay, so that's just to help you understand what a diameter is, a straight line connecting opposite sides of a circle that passes through the center point of that circle. Okay, so that's the one new word that you need to know for today, and that's going to come up right away, like for example, right now in our next slide. So today we're gonna have a look at a problem here. What is the diameter of a loonie? Or in other words, if we were to measure from one side of a loonie to the other side, what is the distance across the loonie there? All right. Now you'll see that I've got this loonie overlaid on a ruler using the metric system. These are centimeters here. You can always tell centimeters because a ruler has 30 centimeters on it, whereas it only has 12 inches or 1 foot. All right, so we want to make sure we're using the metric side here that goes up to 30. We plunk our loonie over top of that. And before we get started here, I just wanted to mention something quickly because I was doing some measurement with my son this last week. He's 5 years old and he knows what a ruler is, and he knows that you use a ruler to measure things. But what he did is I gave him an object to measure, and he took that object and he put it kind of right at the edge of the ruler like that. And you know, that's a good start, but the mistake here is that the ruler doesn't actually start, like the measurement doesn't actually start right here at the edge of the ruler. It actually starts right here at this first big tick that says 0. And so in order to get an accurate measurement, you need to put your loonie right there, and we'll just try to get that a little closer. Yeah, perfect, like that. Okay, now again, it's really hard to see the scale underneath the loonie here, so what I've done for you is I have put a little red arrow on this slide here that shows the edge of the loonie. It goes up to there, and then what we can do is we can remove the loonie, and yeah, so take the loonie off, and now we can see all of the ticks underneath it, and we know that we're just measuring the distance between our 0 here and this red line right here. Now, you can see here, if we're measuring in millimeters, millimeters, of course, are these tiny little ticks. There's 10 of them between the 0 and the 1, and then there's 10 of them between the 1 and the 2, and then we've got 5 more up to here. So that's 10, 20, 25 little ticks, or in other words, 25 millimeters. Okay. One thing that may be important for you to know is that there are 10 millimeters in a centimeter. So that's just an easy way we can skip count by tens if we want to count the millimeters there. All right, but you'll also notice on the bottom right hand side of my page here, I'm asking you to give me that measurement in centimeters as well. So if it's 25 millimeters, what that means is it's actually 2.5 centimeters. So on the next slide here, I have written that for you, 2.5 centimeters over here. And what you'll notice is that 25 millimeters and 2.5 centimeters are the exact same distance. We've just measured them using different units, millimeters and centimeters, okay? Now, yesterday in the lesson, I gave you a little chart that looks like this. I was kind of explaining the difference between the metric system and the imperial system that the Americans use. And I said that the metric system is really easy to use because anytime you're converting units, you're just dealing with factors of 10. So from millimeters to centimeters, that's increasing by a factor of 10. And then I also mentioned that there was another unit that's less commonly used called decimeters. So decimeters fits between centimeters and meters. So if we were to put decimeters on this chart, that would be increasing by a factor of 10. And then to go from decimeters to meters would be increasing by a factor of 10 as well. But because we're skipping 2 units here, that's actually increasing by a factor of 100, hence why we have this here. But anyways, it's really easy because anytime you're converting units with the metric system, all you're really doing is multiplying by 10 or by 100 or by 1,000, and these are really easy numbers to work with. But today's lesson, of course, we were only really focused on 2 of those units. We're focusing in on how to convert between centimeters and millimeters. So we're only ever going to be multiplying by a factor of 10, or if we're going the other way, to converting from millimeters to centimeters, we might have to divide by a factor of 10 as well. Now, some of you, when I say that word divide, even if I say multiply, for some of you, that may send shivers down your spine because you don't like multiplication and you don't like division. But I want to teach you something. It's a little life hack that I've learned. And anytime you're multiplying or dividing by 10, this life hack is just going to make your life really, really simple. All right, so let's start with the number 159 here. And if I want to multiply that number by 10, so I'm just going to write times 10 off to the side here. A really easy thing to do is if I multiply a number by 10, that means that my ones are actually going to become my tens, and my tens are actually going to become my hundreds, and my hundreds are actually going to become my thousands. And so what that looks like is if I grab this number on my place value chart, oh, is it going to let me grab it? I don't think it is. Oh no. Oh, there we go. Okay. So if I grab this whole number here, no, it's not going to let me do that. Okay. Well, let's try this a different way then. I'm just going to grab a pen tool here, and I'm basically shifting all of my numbers to the left by 1 place value. And so my 1 is going to come over here into my thousands place value. This 5 that was in my tens place value is going to shift over to my hundreds place value. And the 9 that was in my ones place value is going to shift over into my tens place value here. All right, and what that does then is if we shift those 3 digits over 1 place value, it leaves us with an empty place value here in the ones. And if we don't like empty place values, but in math, we can always just fill up an empty place value with a 0. All right, so I know it's kind of hard to read, and I know this isn't ideal. It would be better if I could grab the 1, 5, and 9 that I had written and slide them over, but you can see nonetheless here, we just shift all those numbers over to the left by 1 place value. We add a 0 in the new empty place value here, and we get an answer of 1,590, and that would be what 159 times 10 is. And it works very similarly for division. If I just clear all of that, and now we want to divide this number by 10. Throw up a little divide by 10 here. Not like bleh, throw up, but like write it up here. So now, rather than shifting all of my numbers to the left by 1 place value, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift them all to the right by 1 place value. So what was in my ones place value here is actually going to come over here in my tenths place value. So that 9 is going to end up over here. And what was in my tens place value, this number 5 here, is going to end up over here in my ones. There. And what was over here in my hundreds place value is just going to end up in my tens place value there. And now because everything's been shifted over, this place value doesn't exist anymore. So I'm just going to scribble that out as best I can here. And what we're left with here is a 15. And then there's a decimal point right here. So we're just going to make sure we include that here in our number. 15.9. So 159 divided by 10 equals 15.9. So it's just a matter of shifting your digits. If we're multiplying by 10, you shift this way to the left. And if we are dividing by 10, you're going to take your digits and shift them all this way by one place value to the right. Okay, so that's just a really simple little life hack, and that's going to save you a ton of work for sure in this lesson and then down the road too, if you can remember that. So let's tackle a few examples here now that we know that little life hack. Okay, so the first question here, the measurement that they've given us is 45 millimeters. And so over here on the chart, our starting number is in millimeters, and we want to convert that to centimeters, all right? And so what that's telling us to do is to divide our initial number by 10. And because of that little life hack trick that I showed you, I know that that is going to, we're going to take these two digits here and shift them to the right by one place value, which means that my 10 is going to end up in, or sorry, my 10's place value is going to end up in my 1's place value. And then we have a decimal. And then the 1's place value is going to end up as a decimal in my 10th place value there. Okay, so 4.5 centimeters. Now this one here, question number 2, we start with centimeters. That's this unit right here. And we want to convert that into millimeters. All right, and to do that, we multiply by 10. And so with this, the number is going to get bigger. If we take 27 and multiply it by 10, so that I know is going to give me a number of 270, because we're going to end up with that empty place value, which will fill up with a 0. All right, so 270. And once you kind of catch on to this, they start going really, really fast. When we realize that we're dividing a number by 10, we know it's going to get smaller. So 5,200, I can just look at that and just like that in my head, come up with an answer of 520, like that. And this one here, starting with 0.8 centimeters, we want to convert that to millimeters. So I know I'm going to multiply it by 10, which means my number is going to get bigger. So I know that this is going to move up place values, which will become 8 millimeters, like that. Okay. And just to recap, we've taken this 8 and we've shifted it over to the next biggest place value, which would be my 1's over here, just to the left of the decimal. So that's where I'm getting my 8 millimeters from. Okay, so that's your lesson on how to convert between millimeters and centimeters. Yeah, I think that's all I got for you today. You can head on over to Google Classroom now, and I've got just a quick little assignment for you. There's, I believe, 10 questions on there that look very similar to this, where you're just converting between the two forms. And when you're done that, you are done for the day. All right, we'll see you back.